I think upwards of 70% of my clients are from Twitter. It's pretty crazy that you can complain on the internet about your job and then start your own business.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing for Accounting Firms podcast, where we sometimes talk a little bit about marketing for accounting firms, but often just talk about accounting firms in general and what it's like to run them and build them and grow them and all that. And today I have Jamie Nichols on, and she is going to be talking about how she built her firm. Jamie, thank you so much for being here. I don't know, just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what do you do? Tell us about your firm.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So I am a CPA in Denver, Colorado. I work with a lot of solo consultants, small residential real estate investors, some tech employees with equity compensation, and small businesses who are service businesses, generally with revenue under 5 million. It's just me. I don't have any employees. This is going to be my third tax season starting in January 2026.
Okay. Do most of your clients, are they coming to you as like a tax strategist, as like an advisor in that way? What's your relationship with most of these clients?
I could talk about tax strategy versus tax compliance for way too long. I have a lot of opinions about it.
Yeah.
So I don't offer tax strategy as a service, but I will say that at least 30% of my prospects come to me complaining about the fact that their prior preparer didn't provide them with the planning that they were looking for. And a lot of times we have to have more of an in-depth conversation about what exactly they're looking for out of tax planning and whether their budget and their expectations are in line with what a tax strategist would really charge them. I've had a lot of struggles pricing and creating a product out of tax strategy itself. And I haven't actually nailed it in. And that's why I only have one product offering right now. And what I've found is that I'm so nervous about charging for something that I don't 100% understand. Like, not that I don't know how to do it, but I don't know how it's going to be like received by them and what the value is. I think there's a lot of value there, and I want to make sure that like I'm pricing adequately. So I've been tracking my time mentally, like when I do planning with people, and I actually haven't really been charging for it, but like making a mental model of the types of clients like that it works for and that I get really good results. So that like when I go to offer tax planning as a service, I can like really hone in on the people where it's going to benefit them. And then I'm not charging people where they don't really have any options for tax planning. Does that make sense?
No,
I don't know.
I think it does. I think that I've experienced similar things in my business. Like you do it first to understand it and know what you're doing. And it's not until you feel like you really have your head wrapped around it that you can figure out what to charge for it, what is the value and all that. I think business owners go through different phases. You do it because you love what you do and you're in the weeds, you're in the preparation and the planning and doing all this. And then, I don't know, I'd be interested to hear, maybe you grow more into, now I'm running a business, but you need to understand the business you want to run before you can build the systems to hire in and get the team or whatever you need, if that's the direction you go. This is a long-winded way to get to a question. But there are also people who just do what they want to do well and make sure you can make a great living at it. Not everybody wants to get out of the work of it. They want that kind of lifestyle business that works for them and fits with their life. What do you want? What kind of business are you trying to build?
I thought I would have the answer to that by now. I don't know. It's really tough. There's a lot of opportunity in the accounting space. So you get that like big eyes. Should I be trying to build like everybody else? My son was born in November of 2024. So that kind of gave me this time period of this is lifestyle business right now. Yeah. And he's 14 months old. So I'm just now got a nanny. I have some childcare. I have some time to focus. And I think that's the big question I'm going to be answering in 2026 is, do I want to grow it or do I want it to be a lifestyle firm? Do I want to hire? I need to answer the question of, do I want to lean into offering bookkeeping? I've really side-skirted that over the past years. I don't have time to do bookkeeping myself, even though I used to really enjoy when I was an employee doing bookkeeping, and I hate it now. I really struggle with pricing bookkeeping because I'm the person doing it. It just work out. So do I want to offshore the bookkeeping prep and really get a great process for my tax return prep and have clean financials. I think that it wouldn't be that difficult to do that because my businesses are not that difficult. They're service businesses, they're solo consultants. I think that would be really good if I wanted to do the work to do it.
Yeah.
I think I will at least try to get a little group of bookkeeping clients. So I guess that'll be a project for spring 2026. I've been surviving the last year, if you can't tell.
Okay, I don't know if this is going to come across as a strange question, but you're fairly new into this running your own business.
Yeah.
But when I started asking around to different people, I was basically saying, whose story do you want to hear? Or who do you think would be an interesting guest to talk about their firm? Your name kept coming up. So here's the weird question. Why do you think that is? What's your story? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah. Twitter. I switched. Okay. So here's my background. I really struggled when I graduated college, finding a career that I wanted to work in. I have a finance degree from the University of Florida. I graduated in 2012 and the job market was awful and bounced from like entry-level job to entry-level job. And I'm going to skip over 6 years, but I was working Wells Fargo in the commercial lending part of the bank. I decided to go back to school for accounting. I got my master's degree. I moved to San Francisco for a little bit and started in bottom of the barrel, like accounts receivable, like analyst, but like really boring. Actually, it was this business. It was crazy. They did $1 billion in revenue and they created all of their invoices in Excel. And there was a team of like
Wow.
9 of us. It was a privately held company.
People don't know what's really going on, like under the hood at these like very large businesses, especially the ones that have been around for a long time. That's crazy.
I've never seen macros like I saw at that company. It was nuts. So anyway, moved back to Colorado, wanted to work in public accounting. And I didn't even know that I wanted to work in tax, but I got an interview with a local public accounting firm in downtown Denver. They specialized in tax. They had been around for 40 or 50 years. There were 4 partners. 2 were younger and 2 were in their 70s. And the younger guys were buying the older guys out. And I was the only, they had an EA and then they had me. And they did all of their work papers on paper. This is 2019. So we would like handwrite in red pencil page numbers of our work papers. If the client brought in an additional paper, you would have to like white out the page number by hand and like paper files. It was crazy. And I remember being like, I found myself in this really weird profession and I like it, but I'm so confused why they're like weird about everything and intense about everything. And I didn't understand why they were only paying me like $50,000 a year, but they expected me to work 60 hours a week. I just didn't get it. And I went on Twitter trying to find some answers to some questions like, is it bad to put real estate in an S corporation? And Matt Foreman, attorney, responded to me really nicely and helped me out. And that was the middle of COVID. They ended up laying me off like a week after the tax deadline because uncertainty, like the stock market was crazy. And it didn't take a week. I had another job at a local firm. And by that time, I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, I like this, like learning about all of the new businesses that I now get to prep their tax returns. And I worked there for a year. I learned a lot from their partners. Accounting firms have a lot of problems. And so by this time, I was like, okay, like I can see a path to a CPA license. I was finishing my master's degree. I was like planning towards the CPA exams. This is getting really long-winded. I'm sorry. But the point is that great. I switched firms every year for 4 years. And I was like, I want to work for myself. I'm going to get my CPA license. And the best way I could think to do that was to work. I just was like, these jobs suck, but I'll learn as much as possible from them and try and figure out the best way that I can do it and improve off that. So my goal was always like, I want to learn as much as possible. My second firm was another local firm, older partners. One of them was in his 80s. They had a lot of wisdom to pass down, but I think you can only train so many people. I think sometimes you get a little bit tired. And so I struggled to get some of the guidance at points that I wanted. I made a pretty spectacular mistake at one point with one of the partners didn't review anything that I did for a partnership with 40 people. And we had to amend 40 people's K1s. Oh
You learn
man,
a
you
lot
should.
more through failure than you do through success. So I'm sure you learned a lot.
Yes. And then my third firm I loved, it was a local RIA. I was the only CPA there. So that was my third tax season. I started signing tax returns. And then I got like the full experience of, because there's a big difference between prepping a return as an associate and like signing a return and then really owning that process. And usually that in a larger CPA firm, that's not going to happen in your third tax season. I learned some really awesome lessons there. But then I was like, I really want to work under CPAs. I was the only CPA at the RIA. So then I went and worked remotely for a regional firm based out of Oregon, which is a top 100 firm. Not huge, awesome firm, really great. But by that time, I had been this whole time like tweeting about all of the crazy things about public accounting. There's so much that you can complain about public accounting. So that's how I grew my Twitter account, was complaining about that was it.
And you attracted other accountants and tax people who had similar complaints, I imagine, or who had arguments or interests. Yeah, I don't know. They wanted to be part of that conversation.
They wanted to be part of the conversation. And I remember at my third firm when I started really interacting with clients and talking about like how things that happened in my day to day I started to really gain traction. And then being a remote, like senior tax associate, there's that all of the issues that public accounting firms have with outsourcing the work to India and then like having difficulty with managers not really being able to train their associates. So I really struggled to find what I was looking for at that fourth firm because a lot of these firms just don't have the capacity for training and they have a lot of churn. And so by that point, I had like thousands of followers and Elon Musk had just bought Twitter and I was really frustrated in my role and feeling like, man, what if Twitter goes under and I lose the ability to take all of these clients with me? And I like hemmed and hawed. And then like on, I think January 1st ago, I announced that I was starting my own firm and people have followed the story for a really long time.
Yeah.
And within an hour, like I had 20 inquiries of announcing it. And I think upwards of 70% of my clients are from Twitter.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's pretty crazy that you can complain on the internet about your job and then start your own business.
Is this a pathway that you would recommend to other people? who are starting out?
100%. Yes.
It's funny, right? But in all seriousness, it sounds like your experience, like as through the entry level, gaining experience over half a dozen years, something like that, kind of in the space before you started
actually,
your
I
own?
think it's going to be my 8th tax season.
Okay, so eight tax seasons and 3 on your own. I guess I'm wondering, do you think this is a pretty typical experience of like younger people who are going into this? They find themselves in these weird situations with weird processes that don't seem to be updating with the times. And then the answer is, I guess you just got to start your own thing. It's easier to start your own thing than it is to try to build the job or get the job that you want within the system that exists.
I think for entrepreneurial people, it is fairly common. I've gotten the opportunity to talk to people, also a couple of attorneys who have started their own practices. I think you have two sets of people. You have people who come straight out of college with an accounting degree, and they're a lot more likely to work in public accounting for a little bit and then go into industry, work in another field altogether. But then you have the people who, like the non-traditional students. I see a lot of people who are self-employed who are non-traditional. Maybe they're just the type of people who found the lifestyle and that it could work for them. And maybe I gravitate towards those people just because that's what I am and I'm biased because we have a lot in common.
Do you think of yourself as primarily being motivated by an entrepreneurial drive? I want to build a business in that. Or are you, I don't know, maybe this is just what I'm picking up. You seem like someone who's interested in solving problems. Are you more interested in the work, like getting it right and figuring it out? Or are you interested in making money?
I like learning new things. Bad with repeating things. Like if I'm working in an office, there's something about tax work though that I do really enjoy. Like I like putting on my headphones and finishing a return and creating the invoice and task is done. I really like that aspect of compliance work. And I think in terms of a white collar trade, it's a really, because if you can set a pretty decent price, you can make a really good living. So I don't know. I feel like I'm answering yes to all sorts of that question. I struggled in office jobs. Like I would do really well for the first couple of months and then I would get super bored. And I really struggled too when I was working in an office, like in the off season when there was nothing to do, but I still had to be there. I would go crazy. Like it would be fine when we were busy and I had something to do. I would be really happy. I really like the flexibility of self-employment to do the work when there's work available and to focus on other things in my life, like when there's not. And I like the seasonality of tax work. I actually do enjoy the fact that like I'm very busy during busy season and then I have some time to really step away from it. I can travel and see my family and do different projects. I always really wanted to be self-employed. My dad was self-employed and my mom worked for a company. And so I saw the difference in the day-to-day life between the two of them. And I really do not like clocking in. I do not like asking for PTO. It really stresses me out. I don't like having a boss and I do not really like being told what to do.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I often joke that at this point, I'm basically unemployable, having now worked for myself. Like you get the perks of working for yourself they're not always cash, right? At least in the short term, but you get all this flexibility and freedom and a lot of other things it's hard to give up if you're going to go back and work for someone else.
Yeah. I'm not saying I couldn't if I was bankrupt.
That's probably less likely, but we all know it's so hard to find. Here's what I'll say. I talk to so many mid-size and even larger firm owners. Their biggest challenge is finding entrepreneurial employees, like people who really own it, and especially in the tax pro position. I think more and more in these kind of mid-sized and larger firms, that role, the person who's actually interacting with clients, they have to be customer facing, client facing. They have to have an advisory personality to a certain extent. They have to be entrepreneurial in wanting to grow the accounts. And the question is always, if you found that person, what's stopping them from going out and just starting their own thing?
That's it.
Not much. And so it's hard to staff for that person, but everybody's looking at it. In reality, right, the more likely scenario is someone comes along and says, hey, Jamie, let me buy your firm for you. You come work for me. That's the question of, is that something you'd go back to that meant like a little bit of money now and a stable job? Or I'm like putting you on the spot. Who knows?
No, I get those offers all the time. People are always trying to hire me.
Yeah.
They'll say you can keep your clients or we'll buy them from you.
So why haven't you?
I don't want to be an employee. Yeah. I need to be able to look at the weather forecast and be like, I'm actually going to take a 2-hour long walk at 11 a.m.
Okay, so let's go back. If you're thinking back and you're giving advice to, I don't know if it's your college self or your early career self or whatever, and knowing what you know now and where you've landed, what kind of advice would you give? Or if you're talking to someone else who's in a situation like that, wondering about, I don't know, I kind of like this thing, I don't know where my career's going. What kind of wisdom do you feel like you've gleaned through your experience?
I would say really lean into your relationships with partners. If you want to be self-employed specifically in an accounting role, and grow your technical skills as fast as possible. And don't shy away from picking up the really difficult projects, the weird stuff that other people might not want because it's difficult. I think I talk a lot about flexibility now, but the only reason that you can be flexible in self-employment is after putting in a lot of work. I actually do think being in office is really important when you're learning. There's nothing that replaces those early years in the same room with someone who's been preparing tax returns for 40 years. And you can really accelerate your learning experience if you embrace the suck of going into an office.
This is a really challenging thing in a lot of professional fields right now is that remote work is great for people who already know what they're doing, right? So those senior people, them being able to remote work, have the flexibility of their own time, that's what they all want. I think this is happening in the marketing world as well. Those entry level, early career people benefit so much from those relationships and learning, just through osmosis of being around people that have done it for a long time. I don't know if the answer is you just got to pay senior people more money to come into the office. I don't know if that would motivate me. If I know what I'm doing, I don't want more money. I want more freedom. So I get it, but it's a challenge to be solved. I don't think that some of the things downstream from the benefits of remote work haven't really bubbled to the surface yet. How do you get experience if you don't have those relationships and those people? One thing, it sounds like you've also supplemented those in-person relationships by developing connections with people online and through Twitter and all of that. So it sounds like you've learned a lot from that community as well.
Oh my goodness. Yes. The tax Twitter community is amazing. I think in the last couple of years, it's really fragmented off into these private groups like Counter and the Collaboration Room. And there's so many.
Yeah.
And I'm in Counter, which is great. People doing the training. I do think companies can hire specifically for personalities that like to do that. And I think that they should. And I think that accounting firms need to make sure that their managers are the type of people who like to train. And I think that's something that they could and should be more mindful of in general. I also do think that firms either have to go like 100% remote or 100% in person, maybe with 1 or 2 days hybrid, just for like, especially for parents of young kids. Because I think that you can get very close if all of the employees are remote and they deal like exclusively through the same systems. But when you fragment the communication and some people are remote and some people are in office, I think that's when trouble starts.
We're going to take a quick break here.
Awesome.
We'll put some ads in here and then we'll come back.
Cool.
This podcast is brought to you in part by Works. Now, if you're a business owner, you know that your reputation is one of the most important things. And your reputation isn't just about the work that you do. It's not just the tax advice that you give or the bookkeeping services or the advisory, any of that. Your clients depend on you to make good recommendations for other things like professional services. Payroll is one of those areas where mistakes can be really costly and unforgiving. That's why firms choose Works. With Works, your clients get world-class payroll and HR support. You get the peace of mind knowing you've referred them to a team that you can trust to take care of them. So you look good and they're happy. You can learn more at works.com. That's WHIRKS.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by TeamUp. TeamUp is a recruiting firm that helps you hire direct in the Philippines. But how do you hire in the Philippines? Do you need to understand Philippine employment law? There really are two main options. You can hire a contractor where you pay them directly and they handle their own tax and compliance. Or you can work with an employee of record, similar to a PEO. They handle the payroll and compliance. They pay the employee, you pay them, but they aren't involved in any of the day-to-day work or management of your employee. TeamUp is not an employment of record, but they can refer you to one if you want. Either way, the day-to-day experience is the same. If you've been considering hiring in the Philippines, but you're worried about everything being above board from an employment and compliance standpoint, TeamUp can help guide you through that process. You can learn more at hireteamup.com. Again, that is hireteamup.com.
Okay, we are back. This is Matt. We're on the Marketing for Accounting Firms podcast. I have Jamie here, and I'm just going to do a quick recap. You went through a bunch of different things a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, decided to go out on your own. You got this whole tax Twitter connection. You're building your own business. It's a solo shop right now. Let's talk a little bit about the practicalities. Like, how do you run your business as like a solopreneur in this tax space? What tools are you using? You mentioned groups that you're involved in. Like, what does it take for you to run a successful practice?
Man, I hate going like right off the bat with, I use Intuit products because that feels really bad. I have to say UltraTax, which I don't use, is the best tax software. Okay. It's my favorite one. And I think it's the most robust. It's my favorite.
I'll call them up and see if they want to advertise on the show.
Yeah. But for a solo person, so I was looking at laptop, tax software, cloud backups. In my first year, I actually had a contract employee who was another CPA that I had worked with. She's now a CFO of a hospitality group. So she was the best contractor ever. Anyway, so I decided what was best for me was the Intuit ProConnect, which is a cloud-based tax software. It's come a long way. So I had worked with a couple of they probably call themselves AI now, but they're really like PDF readers for getting the like information into the tax return. And the ProConnect import function improves every year. I really like it. And then I went with TaxDome for my signatures and client document sharing and organizers. And set up my website on Squarespace, and I use Gmail, and I have a Microsoft Office subscription that just increased in price, which is really lame. I'm trying to think what else. I don't think my expenses are pretty low.
Yeah. Do you have anything? Do you work with an IT company around cybersecurity or anything like that? Or do you mostly like the softwares that you use? I know they're all keyed in and worried about that, but on the tech side, is there anyone else that you have involved in this?
I do not have outsourced IT. I have a written information security plan that of preparing tax returns, but I review the security protocols of all of the programs that I work with. I don't use like any AI note transcribing programs. I'm not sure how I feel about having conversations recorded. I have a pretty simple process for, like, I have a running Google Note of all of my prospects when I have my prospect phone calls with them. And I don't use a fancy program to send like invoice proposals. I just email them and say, your 1040 quote is $800 to $1,000 and your S Corp quote is $1,500 to $1,700. And then they say yes. And it's very simple. I'm operating at a level where if I were to hire an employee, I would probably have to overhaul a lot of my practices.
Sure. That is one of the benefits of being on your own, right? Is that you use the processes that worked for you, but also you have all the knowledge in your head. It doesn't have to go anywhere else. So you can figure it out. Just in general, how many clients are you working with per year? Do you have a personal max of or ideal number? This is the size business I want for me. And at that point, I assume you just got to raise prices to like.
Great. I have 1/3 of the capacity that I'm capable of. I have about 100 tax returns that I prepare right now, and that's about 60 to 70 clients.
Okay.
So I think I could have 300, and maybe probably want to hire someone like in busy season if I got to that to help with data entry.
Yeah. And so 300 clients, are you putting a lot of your clients on extension? Like how busy are you in tax season versus like the rest of the year?
I do about 60% that get filed before April 15th. And then all of my difficult ones get extended. So I do get busy again in October. So
like less work, but more complicated. Yeah. Let's go back. You mentioned in terms of prospects and discovery calls. Well, let's talk marketing. That's what the show's about. How do people find you and how do they become clients? What's that process look like?
They generally find me on Twitter. I get a fair amount of referrals from financial advisors. I'm trying to really grow a local network. That's my number one priority. I want to work with more people on the Front Range, on the Western Slope, but just generally in the state of Colorado. I thought about joining a local BNI group, and it was a little weird and very expensive. So I don't think I'm going to go that route. There's a local networking group for entrepreneurship through acquisition, like the ETA meetups. And I went to one a couple years ago, and then I haven't really had time. But I would like to go to an ETA meetup soon. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm really interested in more in-person local networking. I should probably do videos and put them on Instagram. I know that can work really well. Not really my personality, and I think that would be pretty difficult. I don't know. Yeah. You're the expert in marketing.
I'll tease out a couple things that I'm hearing. One thing is one of the easiest ways to market and grow a business is when the owner is able to and is willing to be the face of the business. Like people want to connect with people. And so things that you have going for yourself is that you're findable in a couple places. Right now, Twitter is the main one and you're focused on local networking. People can meet you and find you. They know that they're going to work with you. And so when they hear anything you have to say or they see anything that, highlights your expertise, it builds trust and people are like, oh, that would be a person I would look for. You have a unique niche in that, or an advantage you have over larger firms is that you might have business owners. I know there's some very active business owners on tax Twitter, But if someone hires their firm, they're not going to get to work with that person that they've built
Yeah.
a parasocial relationship with through social media. So that can be an advantage to you. And my view on marketing is basically it's this: your system is perfectly designed to give you the results that you're currently getting. And so if your system is working, whatever you're doing for marketing, if you've got an audience and that drives leads, that's great. You don't have to do SEO. You don't have to have a fancy website. You don't need a logo and brand package. But if you're an owner who doesn't want to be the face of your firm and doesn't want to do production and all that stuff, you got to invest in a lot of these other marketing tactics in order to generate the business. It depends. If you're not getting the leads that you want, then you got to change the system in some way. But I do think that there's a lot of disruption that's happening in the way that marketing happens in general right now because of AI and the way social media has changed in the last 5 years or so. And so I think the key for any firm, and it sounds like you figured it out, is to find something that works. The one other thing I'll say is that usually we see firms grow through referrals and personal networks for a while. And then as you get more and more clients, you lose some of them. And so a lot of firms kind of plateau where they're losing 15% of their clients per year, and then they're just getting another 15% through referrals and it flattens out, but they struggle to make the next leap. And that's the point when you start thinking, okay, do we need to do different things for marketing? But when you're early stage, personal networks, building, not everyone's going to be able to build an audience. Although I guess if you complain enough on social media, you'll get there eventually. That's a lesson that we're learning.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my little like soapbox monologue about marketing. I don't think that there's any right way, like one way to do it. But marketing is really just two things. It's you need to have like awareness, enough people know that you exist, and then conversion. You have to have a compelling reason for them to work with you. And if you get both of those figured out, you've got it figured out. It doesn't have to be anything more fancy than that.
Oh, that is encouraging.
It might get harder when you start hiring employees and you're like, I got more mouths to feed and, you know, that kind of stuff. But for where you're at, maybe here's my other, like, I don't know if this is wisdom or advice or whatever, but a friend of mine has this phrase where he's like, you can be rich or you can be king. And the idea behind it is like, you can be the king of your world. Sounds like this is something that might appeal to you. Flexibility, work with who you want to work with, don't work for someone else. The only way to be successful if you're on the king route is fewer clients, higher prices. You can't be successful by maximizing volume, doing more and more and more. The rich route is you build a system, you build a team, it becomes more standardized, and like you're not so much like the practitioner as much as the like operator of a system. And you can have lower prices, you can do more volume that direction, but you're managing a system instead of like king of your world. Both of them are completely valid, but for firms and owners that don't know which path they're on, you try to do both where you're like, I just want to work for myself, but I'm going to do like tons and tons. It's just an automatic burnout recipe. There's no other possibility. So, you know, if you decide not to hire employees, that's totally fine. You just got to keep raising your prices and probably cutting off. You actually maybe want to actively cut off a certain number of clients every year once you've hit your like ideal number, and just make sure that you get your prices to match the life that you want to do. That sounds wonderful I bet for a lot of people, like just that world. Okay, I'm done with my monologue. Jamie, let's kind of land here. What advice would you have, or what are your thoughts on like professional community and networks and groups? You kind of mentioned that earlier. You're a part of the Counter Group, it sounds like. But what, as you've thought about your own growth as a business owner and in this, like, what should people be looking to cultivate in their lives from your perspective?
I think I always had a mantra when I worked in an office that your job as an employee is partly to show up and only make other people's days better. And I think that being part of a team and being a really positive person is really important. I don't really think about that much anymore because I work by myself. And so I have all my friends on the internet now, which is a big switch. But I don't know. I just think that's really important for accounting employees because we are sometimes pessimistic and like Debbie Downers. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're going to go a lot farther if you are like an optimistic, nice person to be around. I remember a lot of people told me, and a lot of people have told me in prospect calls that like they struggle to relate to their accounting professional. Or I remember when I was an employee, a lot of my managers would say, you really excel because you are very personable. So maybe I was like a personality hire for accountants. So I don't know, just like try not to be so introverted and upset, I guess, in person and save all of your complaints for Twitter.
So the key, you got to have both. You got to have that ability to be positive in the workplace and with your clients, but you got to have that outlet of peers.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Twitter's probably an okay place to start. Probably an even better place is a closed group that can't ever be publicly searched by your prospects.
Much better. Yes.
That's the way that things have been evolving on the internet, is more closed or private groups. Even in our families, I think we all have rather than posting photos to Facebook, we're sending photos to like family chats and things like that. And I think in the business world, these public groups, which get overrun by marketers and other vendors and people who are trying to weasel their way in, a lot of people, I think, have consolidated into these kind of affinity groups. You find the one that fits with your personality, with your business model, with what you're trying to learn, and that's where you're going to get your community these days.
I don't love it that much. I think Counter's great, but I miss when there were more people on tax Twitter before it got fragmented off to Blue Sky. And I would like to see a return to the humble blog post. We have newsletters, and newsletters are okay, but I like being able to go to one place and read them all sequentially. I think that when you go to Google search stuff now, Google search is completely useless. AI is making like a lot of things that aren't private and correct. The stuff that you can find publicly is so wrong. I don't know. I want to bring back blogs personally.
You and I sound like we have a fairly similar history. I was a big Google reader person, and back in the day, I had probably 30 blogs that I read almost on a daily basis. And that internet has changed. But be the change you want to see in the world. Maybe I'm
going to do it.
Are you going to do a Substack or something? That seems like the modern.
It's just the modern blog, but I don't want a Substack. I want like a blog.
I have it on good authority as someone who designs and builds websites. You have that functionality in your Squarespace.
Yeah, that's been on my to-do list for years.
Could do it. Hopefully this isn't opening up another box, but are you using AI in any ways for yourself right now? And what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't use it a ton. It has made some kind of like really rote, terrible tasks a little bit better. The one that comes to mind for me personally is extracting depreciation tables and putting them into a spreadsheet and doing some basic data conversion stuff. Gemini. I'm using Gemini. ChatGPT has gotten a lot worse recently, I've noticed. Those are really the only two that I use. I use it to find court cases, but its answers are not super useful. So yeah, I use it to cases, and then I go read the court cases, and I use it to manipulate data when I need it to do that.
Yeah. So using it to speed up things that then you're very actively checking on.
Yes.
Rather than to generate anything on your behalf.
Oh yeah, no. And like, I don't use it for emails. I used it a couple of times to help write letters, and it wasn't super accurate. And I find that it tends to be more time consuming. I'm not an early adopter of tech. I'm going to copy someone who put in like 100 hours and just take what they said was super useful. So I'm not going to be the first person to try and figure it out. And I don't really like AI, like on a fundamental level. Don't.
We've already established you like blogs and like the old internet. I love that for you. I hope that it all works out. I'm not super optimistic. That's the direction of the internet's momentum at this current point. But I agree. I think life would be better if we would get back to probably. I heard someone the other day say where the internet really went wrong was when we stopped having like the computer room, where like that was the only place you had to go to the computer room to be on the internet. And then it just got worse from there, laptops and then smartphones and all of that. So you just got to go back to blogs and computer rooms. And then
that's exactly right. I would like to get an e-ink phone.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I do love. And I would the hardware is really expensive, but I would love to have e-ink monitors. I thought that they were going to become a thing, and apparently nobody else is interested in them, but I would love that.
If you're a tech startup listening to this podcast and you're looking for a use case, you should contact Jamie. I think we should leave it there. This has been a fun conversation. Thank you for indulging. And where can people find you? Is there anything that you would want other firm owners, people who listen to this show, to know about you? Do you want to stay anonymous? Or you want to rebuild tax Twitter? Is that the call to action here?
Yes, that's my call to action. I want everybody to come back to tax Twitter and leave Blue Sky and come argue with us on tax Twitter.
What's your Twitter X handle?
It is Mountain West Tax.
Okay. So find Jamie on Twitter, X, Mountain West Tax. And you can find me. I'm there too, Matt Banker. I'm also on Blue Sky. I do both. And you can find our website at marketingforaccountingfirms.com. Yeah, this has been the Marketing for Accounting Firms podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, you should go and leave us a review and a rating. I'm very bad at asking about those things. So if you're a listener and you haven't done that, it would help us out a lot. I think I'm going to leave it there. Jamie, any last words of encouragement? She's shaking her head. Okay, thank you for being on the show. And yeah, see you later.
Thank you so much. It was so fun.
This was fun.
All right, I have Isaac here, Isaac Smith from TeamUp. And TeamUp is a recruiting company for the Philippines. Is that how you would describe yourself, Isaac?
That's right. We help accounting firms hire staff in the Philippines.
Now, a big conversation topic in the accounting world right now has a lot to do with outsourcing and offshoring. And a lot of firms are leveraging talent overseas, but I think there's a lot of confusion, or there's different ways to do that. Could you unpack that a little bit and then help us understand how TeamUp fits into that whole system?
Sure. Yeah. And I understand the confusion because you hear about all different things. It sounds foreign, literally. And so usually in the accounting space, when people are talking about outsourcing or offshoring, these words mean different things, but they're used interchangeably, and so it's meaningless. Usually they're talking about going through some large company, some outsourcing company. They have offices there with floors of people and cubicles. And it's not just the Philippines, there's India and Pakistan and all around the world there are companies like this. And generally speaking, each company will have a different way of operating and a different things that they do, but they all fall into a couple of buckets. One is where you can send work to them, they do the work, send the work back to you, you review it, maybe you send it back for revisions. But you're not actually talking with the people doing the work. You've got an account rep. The other way that these companies commonly work is they might give you a dedicated staff member, somebody you can work directly with. In all cases, even that company will have their own office policies, procedures, middle management, probably some training. They'll do things their way. They've been trained. And they're also going to be very proud of their office culture, right? And so that you can think of it as plugging into one of these companies. Mm-hmm. So that's what most people are talking about when they talk about outsourcing or offshoring. The other thing that you can do, which is becoming a little bit more common, but you don't actually need this middleman forever, right? You can just really hire someone just like hiring someone in another state. And so I'm excited about that. I think there's a lot of benefits, of course, which is why we help. But yeah, in this way, you're just working with people.
So how does TeamUp then help find a right fit person for my accounting firm or someone's bookkeeping practice?
So we're just recruiters. We're headhunters, like any other recruiting service. But I imagine an accounting firm may have used recruiters in the past for maybe U.S. staff. We're recruiters for Philippine staff. And there's a lot that goes into recruiting. We want to get, of course, the skills and experience for the requirements of the role. But more than that, right, you're dealing with humans, right? With your team locally, you probably are hopefully thinking about attitude and culture fit and all of those things. That's a really big part of what we look for too. But ultimately, really, we think of it as headhunting and matchmaking, and that's what we do.
You help accounting firms in the U.S. and other countries find staff in the Philippines that are going to be a good fit, good culture fit, skill fit for their firm. Those firms then hire them directly and they become part of the team. They're not part of another company. They're part of your team. They just happen to be in the Philippines. So they're probably zooming in to team calls and you're communicating over email. But that's not that different than a remote employee in the US these days, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's exactly it. If you hire somebody, whether they're in Oregon or in Manila, you are hiring somebody. And that's your relationship with them, right? You're building the relationship, you're training, you've got your culture and all of that stuff. And so it doesn't need to be any different.
Now, one concern that I hear from accounting firm owners in a lot of situations is they're worried about the security side of things. Obviously, we're handling sensitive materials. You're dealing with someone in another country. How do you help firms manage that side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a top concern, and it should be, right? It's actually easier and simpler than most people think, though, because I think on this topic, as well as the office, the company culture, and management and leadership topic, same thing can be said where I think there is a big step going from in office to remote. But once you're remote, it's not so different. Where you are becomes not really that important, whether you're in one state or another, or maybe you hire somebody in Canada, or maybe it doesn't matter. So we would need to secure the devices that are being used, make sure that they're connecting in the ways that you deem necessary. Every firm is going to have different practices because they're all working with different IT. But if you have people remote already, you know what you would do if you were to hire somebody remotely. You can do exactly the same thing with the person in the Philippines.
Yeah. I think maybe the other elephant in the room around hiring overseas is just there's a fear that there won't be a good culture fit. Now, obviously, every firm has its own culture. Different firms in the U.S. have very different cultures, but if you've never worked with someone overseas before, you may worry that there's too big of a gap there. What advice do you have for firms that are concerned about that?
Yeah, and I love talking about this. I could talk about this all day. Culture, to me, it's really exciting to learn about new cultures and countries. I love to travel. Yes, of course, there is a different culture in a different country. And one of the many reasons why I love working with people in the Philippines is that it's generally easier than some other countries, maybe. But you will hear stories of when it hasn't worked out for people. And sometimes you'll hear stories like, oh, it was just too hard to connect with somebody on, the way that we communicate is different. And so I could describe a few ways that the culture is different. They prefer indirect communication over direct communication and we could talk about those things. But understand that we're generalizing an entire country. It's a large population, 115 million people. And so that generalization is not going to apply to everybody equally. And some people are just more comfortable doing things the more Western way or the American way. We can hire those people. Maybe it's because that's their personality. As is a case for a lot of people, they've been working with U.S. firms for a long time, years. And so they've gotten used to it. They've learned over time that this is how we do things. And so if we're thoughtful, we can hire people who are compatible with what we do. And every firm is going to be different. The owners are different, the culture is different. And so it's important when you hire people in the U.S. to hire people who are a good fit for your culture. The same is true here. And so if you filter for people who are comfortable doing things the more American way, then it just really becomes like hiring people in the U.S. Not all Americans are brash and outgoing. Some of us are shy, and there's personality differences, but also we have cultural differences inside the U.S. too. And so then it really just becomes like that.
Yeah. It's not as big of a lift, I think, as people make it to be in their heads. We've hired team members in the Philippines as well, and we've had great success. Maybe to wrap things up here, could you walk us through what does the process look like to work with TeamUp? How do you actually find out what firms need and connect them with the right candidates?
Sure. We have to meet firms where they are. And so some firms have more experience or awareness of some of the things like, do I need to hire people as employees, or can they be contractors? And we can talk through those things. So hold your hand through some of these main questions and the security question. But then when a firm is ready to move forward, it's going to sound like recruiting. We have an end-to-end recruiting service, and our goal is not to throw a ton of resumes at anybody, right? So it's our job to review those. And so we have a process that I could go into more detail another time, but we qualify and vet candidates. We do a lot of sourcing, a lot of outreach for the right kind of people, looking for, like I said, the culture fit as well. And so, yeah, we just want to connect firms with the very best few who come through this process. We do test them on their accounting knowledge. There's a personality test. Yes, we do referral checks. Yes, we do criminal background checks, all of that. But ultimately, it's about finding that right fit. So yeah, I mean, it's applications, interviews, all of that. And then we connect a firm with a few handpicked candidates who we think might be a good fit.
Mm-hmm. What is the first step if there's a firm that is interested or curious about possibly hiring someone in the Philippines and wants to work with you? How do they get started?
Sure, reach out. You can schedule a call with me. You can go to our website. There's a button there that says schedule a call. It's pretty easy. And that's hireteamup.com, H-I-R-E, teamup.com.
All right. Is there anything else that you would just love to communicate to our audience about TeamUp?
I could talk about TeamUp all day, but really the main message is it's really not any different. Working with people over there your experience should be, and ideally would be, the same as if you hired someone in another state. And so that's what I think your expectations should be.
Yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity and option. So yes, please, audience, anyone who's listening to this, if you're considering hiring overseas, I think you should check out TeamUp. Hireteamup.com is their website. And like Isaac said, you can talk to him and connect with them there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.